Alternative researchers are increasingly telling about the catastrophe in the 17th and 18th centuries, but the skeptics keep asking the same question. Why can't we remember that? Why didn't the grandparents tell us or their grandparents about it? Neither from the meteorite nor from floods or even a nuclear war. Today we are talking about the theory why it might have been forgotten. There were also not so many statements about the First World War, let alone something like flames from the sky, because most of the information has a crack. But why? Not because of the potato. The fact is that the potato contains the poison solanine, and the grain and thus everything that is produced from it contain a fictitious acid, and this combination destroys long-term memory. In the past, the potato was called eating the slaves. A person who consumes these is sluggish, blunt and puts up with everything you order him to do. That's why they're also available on every corner of every dish, and in some countries it is even called a bread substitute, just as it happened in Russia, for example. Peter the Great brought the potato from Europe to Russia in the 17th century, and ordered them to be replaced by the turnip. The turnip was considered the main food of the Slavic ancestors, and the people called them out, devil's apple. In contrast to the beet, the potato hardly releases any nutrients. After consuming these, you become limp, acid and willless. The only energy that it provides is attained from the strength of it. The potato does not unite with any other product. The consumption of these blocks the immune system in a flash. The process of thinking is decreasing rapidly and man becomes a dull and obedient living being. Traces of the potato are never completely excreted, but stay in the body and proclaim more and more new diseases. Medicine is of course silent about it, otherwise they will lose 100 million patients. Potato, as well as the grain and everything that consists of it, contains many carbohydrates. Exaggerated consumption thus leads to the failure of the human organism. It is better to replace them with other foods. Strength is the killer #1 organism. The body cannot process the starch of the potato very well and is therefore extremely overwhelmed. Because for this, many chemical processes must take place in the body in order to break them down. The body mainly recognizes the strength in the sugar, and copes reasonably well with it, but even to dismantle them, it takes 2 to 4 hours, and is extremely busy, and also consumes a lot of vitamin B, B2, B3, PP, C and so on, without a balanced vitamin level. And let's be honest, which of us can say that about ourselves? This is how strength remains in the body. Fold poisons this and it gets even worse, it clogs the mesh fabric. Strength is practically an unsolvable substance. Here is something worth knowing about strength. Starch binds with water from a temperature of about 80 degrees Celsius. After this binding, we have a white mass, which is also called paste, which we all know, and this paste then arises in our intestinal tract. And the finer the ground grain, the better this paste lasts. It remains and clogs the fine functions of the 12-finger intestine and the underlying small intestine. These are first partially exposed during digestion until they are completely excluded from them at some point, and that's where the problem begins, because our body can no longer be supplied with the important elements, and the most common disease is called hypothyroidism. The problem remains the same, slagged by strength. The strength sticks the 12-finger intestines and forms lumps over time. These lumps hinder the function of the large intestine, so that it no longer absorbs nutrients. This is overwhelmed for the time being and gets sick over time. A microflora of the colon is created, because its function is to obtain important nutrients. Among other things, amino acid. A baked or fried potato is the easiest way to harm the organism. The species binds sugar 95% longer than honey or sugar, and sugar, as we already know today, is the main author of the body fat percentage. Saturation does not last very long for sugar products and causes a feeling of hunger again. The cycle of eating the potato is becoming more common and you automatically gain more and more weight. Thus, fast food will never part with the potato as it is essential for it. Especially the fries is one of the strongest impacts on the organism. During the frying process, the potato loses liquid and replaces it with fat. When consumed uncontrollably, this fat obviously gets under the skin much faster. If the potatoes lie in the sun for too long, they turn green and develop a toxin called solanine. An overdose of this poison has a strong effect on blood reproduction and the entire nervous system. Among other things, it still has some symptoms. For a weakened immune system, the whole thing can also have an effect with death, because it's very difficult to get rid of it. For example, the potato could be replaced by the turnip. The land that breeds the most beets today is Holland. Solanine is one of the so-called pollutants that people pull out of food. The bad thing about these pollutants is that they strengthen themselves, and become all the more harmful with the fusion of similar pollutants. These pollutants are also found, for example, in marine products, poisons of cherry seeds or apricots and wheat products. With the appearance of the potato, such a disease was added to diabetes type 2. Strength is like an infinite sugar fur and permanently adds glucose to the body. Permanent glucose intake generates a pancreatic function and makes it all the greater, and the grain products force the pancreas to overload. In addition to potatoes and cereals in the 18th century, plenty of alcohol and all kinds of drugs were also used, that you could only imagine. Imagine a civilization that knew no alcohol, drugs, potatoes or other pollutants. These people would only have to be given a small amount of alcohol and they would immediately lose their memories. In America, for example, a party was founded from the middle of the 18th century, which nothing was called. Why she was founded and why she was so called is unclear. If you see the traces of the ancient civilizations, there is really no comparison to our civilization. Only the architecture, the signature of wisdom and progress, and ours, on the other hand, is a matter of time before we sink into our own garbage.